I think is, I don't know anybody who understands the body as far as muscles and bones and alignment any better than Paul, and knows what to do about it. He is actually a speaker around the U.S. and even internationally. I believe he's planning this as a training center for musculoskeletal alignment technique, which is why he opened this new facility. He gives seminars all over the place, and I'm a personal client, and I can't say enough wonderful things about the results I get every time I have a new challenge. It seems like Paul can help me on the road to recovery quite well. So I am sure he'll fill you in on anything that you need to know about him. So rather than me list a bunch of credentials, we're going to just bring him on up and tap into his knowledge.
Okay, so I just got over a cold, so if I sound a little nasally, that hadn't hit me yet. But my name is Paul Kelly, and thanks for coming. And this is kind of an honor for me, I guess, to host this year. Thanks for coming to see the new facility. It's only been here for about a month, so we just moved in. Still finishing up stuff here, but the goal of this place was to really have a center, not a wellness center, but an educational center. It's more of a center where we want to bring in other educators. Top-notch educators from around the country, really, I'd like to bring in here and have a place for the public or members like yourselves to come in and listen to good education. And also a certifying center for like other therapists too. I teach a modality called musculoskeletal alignment technique, which is originated from Dr. Eric Dalton. And Dr. Eric Dalton, if you don't know who that is, studied from several different practitioners. From Ida Rolf, Dr. Ida Rolf, who was a Rolfing, started Rolfing. Is anyone familiar with Rolfing? Okay, so he was one of her students and good friends, and then also Vladimir Yanda, who came up with upper cross and lower cross syndrome. Have y'all heard of upper cross and lower cross? Upper cross forward head posture, and then anterior tilted pelvis or sway back, which is the most common thing we see in our public, right, from a flexion addicted society. So most people are in a flexion addicted state, right? We're sitting right now. So we're in flexion. Everything we do is almost in flexion, isn't it? So we know that our brain learns patterns. And so what we teach is, like Feldenkrais, is a pattern training, working with the eyes, the vestibular and the motor systems to change motor patterns, correct? So we change motor patterning through also changing the structure through the fascial system and the structural system, mainly through the OA joints, which is the occipital atlantal joint, which is the first joint that is the most important joint in the body, from the head on the neck. So if your head on the neck is not level, we know that it can change the whole structure down below, correct? And we also know that it could be either coming from the head or it could be coming from our pelvis, because those two structures really dictate what happens above and below. So that's what our focus is, and my focus is when I look at people. Typically, my goal is to level the head on the neck and then also the pelvis. That's the number one goal. If I can't get that done in the session, I don't feel like I've done a very good job. But typically, we can get one or the other done in a session, unless you have like anatomical restrictions, like a short leg. Some people have short anatomical legs, things of that nature. But in most people, we can level that. So anyway, that's kind of my background is actually in sports medicine. So I went to the University of Tennessee and studied sports med and athletic training. So I worked on catastrophic injuries, and then I started studying massage therapy and got my license in that. And then I started studying osteopathic medicine, which is where I met Eric Dalton. And so he kind of brought me to this whole new world of osteopathy and structures and neurology. And so now we know it's all a brain problem, right? Right? We do. It's all a head problem, really. So our structure is highly involved with our brain and our cognitive, what we think, what we do every day, our patterning. We're constantly learning every 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes, our body's laying down a neural pathway about our positioning. And so it's memorizing it. It's through our eyes and our ears. It's memorizing everything that you're doing right now. It's memorizing it. And if we don't change up our patterns, then we stay in the same patterns. And so when I say, people ask me, what do you do? I go, well, I just fix patterns. That's all I'm doing. I'm fixing people's patterns, the bad chronic patterns that people do every day that they don't even realize they're doing. So if you're on a computer and you're using a mouse with your right hand and you're cocking your head, let's say you're right eye dominant. So if you're right eye dominant, your head will automatically turn to the right, turn to the left, actually leads with the right eye, and the head will cock to the side. Well, that's a pattern, isn't it? And that stays in us, and from that pattern right there that we've done, changes the structure down below. And then we have a society that goes out and does activities, lifts weights, does all these things, but yet they haven't fixed the pattern. And so they're training, when they're going out and doing their weight training and they're lifting, they're training a bad pattern into their body still, because they never re-leveled the system and started the system over neurologically just to learn new patterns. So we get hurt. That's how we get hurt. That's how chronic pain starts to happen. We have biomechanics is off. The biomechanics is off in the hips or the neck, and then we do repetitive training. Maybe it's cycling, maybe it's running, maybe it's lifting weights until we have a breakdown in the system, and then we get hurt. So we want to take people out of patterns. That's what I do. And so the training area here, that's what that's for, is to teach new patterns to people with exercise. So there was a study that was done, and I always talk about this study because I think it's pretty amazing. And I can't remember, I think it was Harvard that did the study. Harvard does a lot of these exercise studies now because we're starting to get into alternative medicine, which is really cool. It's the first big university that's getting into alternative medicine is Harvard. So they're starting to do these studies on nutrition and exercise and therapies and all these things. And so they conduct this study on 5 things, which was, one was pain management, which is medicine, nutrition-based, exercise, and then alternative therapies, and then physical therapy. So we were in the category of alternative therapies, and they found, this is conducted for chronic pain, neck and back pain, and they found that actually the number one thing that took away chronic pain in people was what? Y'all know? What was the number one thing you think the study found that took away chronic pain? Exercise. Exercise beat everything. So we know now that when we exercise or move the body, it produces its own anti-inflammatories. That's what it does. It produces its own opiates, its own painkillers. So we want to get the body to move. You got a question?
Is that just like walking would do it?
Yeah, walking would do it too. So really that's why we came out with a video. It's called Motion is Lotion. It's kind of a funny name, but actually that's the truth. It produces hyaluronic acid when you move, right? What's hyaluronic acid? It's a lubricating surface that makes the muscles of the bellies move on each other. And so when we don't move, everything dries up and sticks together and becomes really simple movement instead of complex movement. So there's a saying that I always like to say when I'm teaching is that your body will sacrifice its complex movements for stability. That's what it does. So when you get older and you've been sitting a lot and then you get up and you fall over and you break your hip, it wasn't because you lost your balance. It's because your body doesn't know complex movement anymore. It forgot. And so we call that body part amnesia. That's what they call it now. It's because our body forgets movement.